So a bit of a change of pace this week, but if you know anyone who's struggling to conceive, especially if they're older or if they have PCOS, then please share this episode. So welcome to Joyful Eating, episode 191. And this week we're talking about how I got pregnant naturally at age 43, even though I have PCOS. So before we get into that, best bite I had recently, last week I shared the consomme I had at Onzième. And this week I'm still thinking about the lamb ribs that I had there. So they were just like little ribs that had been slow cooked. And so they were like so tender and melting and like rich and fatty because they were lamb. But it came with this apple and rhubarb sauce. So it had, which was like a little bit sweet, but had that like acidity and just like the combination of this like that fresh sauce with the ribs, which is like I'm still like I want to go back and have it again. So yeah, shout out to Onzième in Canberra. If you're ever coming to my neck of the woods, definitely check them out. Okay, so in this episode, story plan for today is first, of course, I'll share the story behind this episode, and then we're going to look at the 11 things that really helped me conceive naturally. And then I've got a bonus tip for you as well. So, story behind this is I actually wrote a blog post years ago, back in 2016, when I did first conceive naturally. And it's been up on the blog ever since. And every now and again, I've turned comments off my blog, but back in before social media when people used to comment on blogs, like I used to get like really, every now and again someone would leave a comment about how they'd been struggling and like they found it helpful. And yeah, so I've been meaning to turn that episode into a podcast for a while. And then recently I did a free class for my around like the little known secrets that block weight loss. And one of the people that were on that free class mentioned that she was having, fertility. She was on a bit of a fertility journey. And that what got me thinking, oh yeah, I've been meaning to do a podcast episode about fertility stuff. And so here we are. Okay, so that's the story. Let's dive in and just look at the 11 things that I did that helped me conceive naturally. And so the first one was like stop taking a pill, obviously, but one of the things that I would have done differently is stop taking the pill sooner. So before we conceived our first, which actually took like almost 2 years, we kind of like stopped and then started trying. Whereas now I would have, like, if I had my time again, I would have stopped taking the pill a lot sooner, a lot earlier, and switched to a different contraception method before trying to conceive. So I had like a bigger window because of the PCOS, it took quite a while for my cycle, like for my period to come back. I think it took like 6 months before I had another period. So that's something that I would recommend if you're thinking it's on my radar, then definitely like look at other contraception methods straight away. Okay, then the next one is that I changed my diet to mostly low carb. And I'm not sure about the mechanism behind this, but if you are someone that has PCOS or you're someone that's potentially insulin resistant, so that means that, and you know you're insulin resistant, that when you put on weight, if it goes on around your tummy, then that's a sign of insulin resistance. Whereas if you put on weight and it goes on your butt and thighs, that's actually healthier. And it's and actually changing your diet probably isn't going to be as helpful. But if you have insulin resistance or you have PCOS, or pretty much if you have PCOS, it's a given that you'll have your insulin sensitivity won't be great, then changing your diet can be really helpful. And I'm not sure of the exact mechanism of how it works, but the sex hormones and all the hormones interact with each other, right? And so insulin, if that's high, that definitely has an impact on the sex hormones and it makes it harder. Like things just don't work as well. Whereas if you keep your insulin levels low, then they're not interfering and the sex hormones are more likely to do what they're meant to do at the right times of the month to give you a more regular cycle. And so by when I made that transition from eating a lot of carbohydrate to going fairly low carb, I immediately noticed the difference in my period. So like because of the PCOS, like you usually have irregular periods, but by changing that diet, my period became regular-ish, like still a bit crazy, but rather than it being like having one period every 2 or 3 months, it was more in the 30, 34-day range. So, and of course, like if you're trying to conceive, the more often you're having a period, the more often you're ovulating. So it increases your chances. So that's something that I would definitely, if you have PCOS or you suspect you might be insulin resistant, definitely look at reducing your carbohydrate intake to help like keep those hormones in balance. Next one is I took a preconception multivitamin. So like your doctor's going to recommend that you take folate and iodine, but I actually figured like, there's, why not just like better to like take a multivitamin that's been designed for this, because you really want to make sure you've got all your all the nutrition boxes ticked, and most things like having more of them isn't a problem. So yeah, definitely recommend that, even though they can be expensive. But I think it's a good investment. Next one is I did for my first pregnancy experiment with, you can get these ovulation predictor kits where you like wee on them and they test hormones. I found them not very effective. And I think like when you have PCOS in particular, that, things don't work in the same way. And so, uh, using those sticks and using hormone levels to determine when you're ovulating isn't very effective. So, but given this was back in, when the first time when I did experiment with those, it was back in, early, 2011, 2012. So maybe that technology has improved since then. I don't know, but I would, yeah, I would just, I wouldn't recommend them now. I don't think it's a good investment. And it's like, it's, yeah, like it's annoying having to wait on a stick, and they were expensive back then. So number 5 is I did measure my temperature every morning, and again, that's something that I think is a bit of a waste of time. I think it's, maybe some people can get some meaningful data from that, but I just found it to be the fluctuations were random and just weren't very meaningful. These days I do wear an Aura ring which tests body temperature. So I I guess if I was trying to conceive in again, I might explore that, but I wouldn't be like too freaked out about it. Like I'd give it, maybe experiment with it, but I wouldn't worry about the temperature tracking. Yeah, because I just, yeah, don't think it's super useful. The thing that number 6, which brings me to number 6. So the thing that I did that was really useful for predicting ovulation is like learning to understand what my fertile signs were. So this was really a game changer. And basically, it's kind of gross, but what you do is like learning about like if the mucus that you have in, like, down there, and like your vaginal mucus and how it changes throughout your cycle. And I actually took a course called Debunking PCOS, which was through a Melbourne-based doctor, and she was really great at explaining that. So I'm not even sure if if that course still exists. It's a long time ago, but if it does, I'll put a link in the show notes to that. But there would be online courses that you could take that just go through the like explaining like the different types, because like it's sometimes in the month that's like it's more stringy, and then it's like can be cloudy, and like what that all means. Like going through a course to help you really understand that was a game changer, particularly like for people like me who have an irregular cycle. It just, then oh yeah, okay, I haven't ovulated yet. Okay, cool, keep trying, and then you get that signal, oh yeah, I have ovulated, and so you kind of, it makes it easier to know like when's the right time to change to try. And then you also know like, okay, cool, we're done for that month. And yeah, so that was super, super helpful. I would highly recommend that. Okay, then number 7. Oh yeah, this was huge as well. It's funny how you forget these things. But this was like, so I used to, I run now, and back then I used to run every day and or most days. And, of course, most of the time, like, being active, having like, and exercising is good. But one of my doctor friends actually suggested that running is a bit too high intensity, and it increases your body temperature, which can make things more challenging for conceiving. And so I just did an experiment where I was like, okay, well, instead of running, I'll just walk instead and see how that feels. I did have a lot of resistance to it, but I was like, no, I'm willing to give it a go. And I'd actually stopped running at the beginning of August. For my first pregnancy, I stopped running at the beginning of August, and we conceived in September. So I I have a feeling that that did help contribute, but you don't know. But yeah, if you are doing a lot of high intensity exercise, you might want to consider experimenting just for a few cycles of just only doing calm, walking. I think lifting weights would be fine, and or swimming, but just like gentle stuff, like not stuff that's going to get your body temperature too high. Okay, next one is taking a holiday. Yeah, so this is actually for my first pregnancy. So we'd been trying for 18 months, and then we had done one round of fertility treatment, like IVF, and uh, that hadn't worked. And we'd actually had this trip planned to go to Ireland. And so I was just like, I'm just going to not think about pregnancy stuff or family stuff at all. I'm just going to enjoy the trip. And wouldn't you know it, like we conceived first on that trip. And I think like just taking that pressure off and all the mental stress that goes with it is a really good idea. So if you are like, you've been trying it for a while and you're feeling yourself getting too attached to it, like having a holiday or even just taking a mental break from trying to conceive, I think is a really good strategy. Then number 9 is, focused on keeping stress levels to a minimum. So again, like, we spoke about insulin, but cortisol, and that definitely plays into the sex hormones as well. So yeah, the second time I really focused on like just clearing my schedule and having like minimal work commitments and not having any big goals that I was working on, and just really having like a space of, yep, just I'm not going to be stressed out about stuff. I'm just going to, live my life, enjoy my life, and keep my cortisol to a minimum and not be, but I wasn't, oh my goodness, I can't ever experience any stress. Like I wasn't stressing about the stress, but I was, organizing my life as best that I could so that my stress was at a minimum. And then number 10 is I took up meditation. So I did this, I actually studied transcendental meditation as part of my stress reduction program, and started meditating twice a day. And I think that I started that for my second, I started that in April, and we fell pregnant in June. So I think that may have contributed to that second pregnancy. Who knows? But the meditation is definitely a practice that I still am doing, like, almost a decade later. So it's definitely it's a beneficial habit to form, regardless of whether it helps with fertility. And then number 11, lucky number 11, our final one is, I did just keep believing that it would happen. So, and I know this can be the most challenging part, especially, when you've been trying for 18 months or more than a year. But just know that, like, you just, yeah, I just kept that belief that, yeah, it was possible. And it really, like, at the time, I remember thinking, like, of all the people that I knew, I didn't, like, pretty much everyone that I knew that wanted to conceive eventually got there. Like I did have a couple of, actually, no, I didn't know anyone personally who hadn't ever like had a baby when they really wanted to. And so I was like, okay, if I want this and I just keep at it, we will get there. So yeah, just hang in there. I know the belief piece is hard, and your brain wants to like doubt and stress and worry about it. But the more you stress and worry, like that adds to your cortisol. So you just got to like, just trust that, yeah, if it's meant to be, it will happen eventually. You just got to keep trying. Okay. And then before we go, a bonus tip for you. Um, and this, something to consider is, yeah, changing your diet, changing your stress levels, all these things, great. But, sometimes there are medical reasons why, and it's not always the woman as well. So, I think particularly if you are older and you do have PCOS, like just get everything checked out sooner rather than later, because if there is another problem that's preventing you conceiving, like better to know that sooner so that that can be addressed. So get the full workup done of both you and your partner ASAP. Like, I think if I had my time again, I would have got that testing done, at the beginning, just to rule those out, because you don't, like, if you wait like 18 months of trying and then you get testing, like that's, wasted 18 months. So, or you may have wasted 18 months. So that's one bonus tip. The other bonus tip that I have is actually having, actually planning in, like, don't just decide, yeah, okay, we're going to start trying and then just try. Actually, have plan in like a preconception time where you're getting ready to start trying. I think that would be really helpful. So, you start your preconception vitamins, and switch to non-hormonal birth control, and look at your lifestyle factors, look at your alcohol intake, like all these things for both you and your partner before you and have a 3-month getting ready to try conceiving. uh, that can be helpful as well, just to make sure that all your vitamin levels and everything are good. And also, yeah, the other thing is, there's, yes, I fortunately did conceive both of my boys naturally. However, there's no shame, and there's totally, I love that we have modern medicine and we have other options. So don't ever feel like you need that you're failing if you end up using fertility treatments. I think let's use all the tools that are available to us. And amazing, if the result is at the end that we get the family that we wanted, it doesn't matter how we got there. And yeah, so there's no shame in using fertility treatments, and don't put that off because you think somehow conceiving naturally is better, because it's not. At the end of the day, you get the egg and the sperm, get that together somehow, and it doesn't really matter how. No one's asking you that when you're in your 40s. Oh yeah, so did your parents conceive naturally? No, it's not a thing. Yes, so I hope you found this helpful if you are trying to conceive. Uh, and yeah, if you and just, yeah, hang in there, just keep going, you'll get there. And if you do know someone who might be struggling with fertility stuff, then yeah, send them the link to this episode. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, have a fantastic week, and I will catch you next week. We'll be back to more healthy relationship with food related topics. Okay, bye.